Hey gang, it's Fridays with Basil, and today I'm going to cover what I think are the 5 best new knives of 2017. Basil is probably going to sit there. He might look this way a few times, but it's what you get. He's not a trained animal, he's just a cat, and he just does his own thing. Anyway, so these are all new releases for the year. So these are the things that I think, and I've got a few different categories rather than just saying I like them for unquantifiable reasons. I've sort of tried to think a bit more broadly, and as I said, so there's not going to be any, Spidey Chefs or 0220s or things that are 2015-16 releases. They're all from this year, so pretty cool. What I'm going to do is first I'll talk about the one that I don't have in front of me on the table, and that is the Rake P801. That was the knife that I did very early in the year. That was, as far as I know, it's a 2017 release, and it's still, I think, probably the best budget knife you can get at the moment. I prefer it to the Rat series. I prefer it to any of the basic Spydercos. I prefer it to most other knives. It's a good flipper, not for hard use, but for EDC. I think it's a great knife, and I'll be probably running in some shots from my review of it, just to sort of drive that home, because it is a really, really good design, fairly unique. It's no longer Fridays with Basil. Fairly unique at the time when it came out. Yeah, it looks a bit like a standard steel frame lock, but a really, really good one. And for the 39 Australian dollars I paid for it at the time, a fantastic buy. But anyway, now that old Dingus is gone, let's look down at the table and I'll go through the other 4 that I do actually have with me right now. Alrighty, so this is the other 4 knives. I'll get started with this one here. This is the CRKT Pillar. Yeah, it's not the best materials in the world. It's very much a CRKT type blade with 8CR13, Teflon washers, stainless steel frame lock, but it's a really strong design. It's strong as in it's got something for the knife people. It's really ergonomic and it's a pretty decent performer, but it's also quite good looking and non-imposing. And this is really a knife you could sell to the non-knife folk. We had a really good opportunity in the last couple of years to sell knives to non-knife people. We had what is, often loathed as the hipster, trend that had a lot of people who weren't usually interested in pocket knives for fashion reasons, pairing them with corncob pipes for the sake of irony, carrying a grandpa knife, all that sort of thing, and actually using the knives. What the knife industry chose to do was just start ratcheting the prices up really heavily of those same sort of grandpa style knives and not really particularly innovating in any way. And so with as the trend came and left, all those potential knife users came and left as well, which was a real bummer to me. Stuff like this is what we should have been pushing at about that time. This is really, really appealing to people who aren't knife people. I found my wife is quite taken with it. She thinks it's quite a nice little blade. Non-knife people. And these are the sort of things that we need to be showing them that not all knives are big and stabby and slicey and scary, that you can carry a little knife. It's not going to have too much of a footprint. Yeah, this one's a bit heavier than it could be, but really that it can be a bit of a lifestyle thing, which is how you have to sell to non-knife people. And the thing is, if non-knife people become either partial to knives or just tolerant of knives, then you'll find that the knife laws will probably relax and that people will, start drinking the Kool-Aid that we've all drank a long time ago. So this is a really good design, and it's a shame it didn't come along a little bit earlier. Instead, we got all these really expensive brands, like the Best Made company and the James brand, selling not much for a whole lot, trying to just make that quick buck, whereas we could have done some serious legwork, sold things like this, and actually gained some ground. But anyway, the little rant aside, the CRKT Pillar is a really strong design that actually manages to trump, even with me, who was a slight steel snob, trump all of those material issues and just be a really enjoyable little knife to have. So that's my first pick. Absolutely. The second one is kind of in line with that. This is the Lionsteel Roundhead, and this is a pretty new The second knife I'll talk about is the Lionsteel Roundhead, and this is in a bit of the vein of the previous conversation I was having, but also it's got a bit for the proper traditional knife crowd as well. So what they've done here is made a very much traditional Barlow style pattern, but used M390, used carbon fiber, used titanium, made it user serviceable, all the stuff that modern folks like while still being very much a traditional knife. So this is something that I think could appeal to absolutely everyone. It is grandpa enough for the knife phobic, but it is modern enough for the knife guys as well. It does everything that you need these old-timey knife patterns to do. So it's got all the good walk and talk, it's got a good nail pull, it's absolutely fine in hand, it's lightweight, and yeah, it's just really, really well executed. And when we've got Great Eastern Cutlery still selling 1095 blades, with frankly about the same level of fit and finish. Yeah, they've got, you know, the smoothed over bolsters and no visible screws and that. When Lionsteel are doing the same thing for about the same price, I think it's really time for us all to take notice. And also just for, you know, apart from a few sprint runs, for the other traditional knife companies to actually start using some more modern materials. I'd love to see that. The same patterns offered in things like M390, or just things like, imagine it in LC200N, like a traditional pocket knife, you know, that's, you know, like a case true sharp, it'll actually hold an edge, you know. Really, really good, and I hope that this is a sign of where we are going, moving away from just tactical towards, you know, the classics that are just, you know, boosted a little bit by not going dull as quick and not rusting as quick and that sort of thing. So really, really excellently executed little knife, the Lionsteel Roundhead. This won't be with me anymore at the time of this airing. It's going back to its owner, who sent this across to me, but I dare say one of these will be joining my collection at some point. It's really an excellent knife, and I really do recommend it, especially for 120 US dollars. I think that's a pretty reasonable price. And hopefully Lionsteel make a bit more of this and keep going with the revitalized traditionals. So very, very good knife. The next knife I'll talk about is this one here. This one is not a new design by any stretch. This is very, very close to the Police 3. This is the Police 4. And it's the best knife at actually being a knife and cutting things of the year, in my opinion. So this knife just cuts and slices like I've, you know, not since I got an Endura, I don't think. With this really thin blade that just has that extra bit of edge on it that you can really make some nice big cuts. You can make completely, you know, paper thin cheese slices with a knife like this. It's got a really good working steel. The K390 was a really interesting choice to upgrade from VG10. VG10 to K390, that's, you know, that's like they're obviously giving it a run, and I think it's pretty successful. Yeah, it'll rust, but it'll also perform for you. I've accidentally ground this up against like concrete and cement tiles, that sort of thing. The edge hasn't distorted too badly. It's just needed a bit of a strop to get the get any sort of tiny little knocks and rolls out. It's a really good performing knife. So it's not a particularly unique or original design. It is just like a giant Spyderco 4-inch blade. It's not discreet by any sense. It's sort of imping a classic pattern, the Delica. It's got a forward finger choil for more controllability. For the knife user's knife, I think this is one of the best offerings of 2017. Really, really good choice of materials, design from Spyderco. It's got some refinement too. I like how there's no exposed tang really. I like its thinness. I like how they were brave enough to do like a big knife that, you know, yeah, you couldn't pry with this, but are any of us actually prying with our big knives? I don't think so. So they've actually gone and said, you know what, let's just make a big slicey knife. And that was a great call, I think. So this Police 4 is one of my top 5 knives of the year, for sure. Great choice, Spyderco. And the last knife, which I think is one of the best new folding knives going, and it's going to be like in the recommendations for a fair while, I think, is the Kizer T1. This is designed by a chap called Uli Henneke, and he has gone and made something which I think, frankly, almost betters the Sebenza in terms of grip comfort and capability and everything. I prefer this sort of very high saber or basically flat grind to the Sebenza's hollow grind. I prefer this handle ergonomics, and it's sold at about 1/3 of the price. Yeah, it's Chinese made. Some people just aren't going to be able to move past that, and that's totally fine. But it's a ball bearing thumb stud operating flipper, which again I kind of hope is heralding some more, you know, similar knives coming in the next years. I must admit I have some flipper fatigue. You'll notice that none of these knives on the table are flippers. Because frankly, I think doing this type of deployment or this type of deployment, you know, unless you're really into saving those milliseconds, you don't generally need to move your grip as much. I'm starting to see less and less benefits, especially even in terms of fiddle factor. When you start putting on bearings, you get a knife like this, it's just as fun to play with as anything else, flipper or not, or axis lock or whatever. Very simple stainless steel frame lock. The only thing I've said about this is it could do with some more color, be that a colored backspace or an anodization or something like that, but you can always do that as the end user. So the Kizer T1 was just a real surprise for me. I had some cash spare. I was going to buy a Rockstead Higo. I'd sold a bunch of knives. Higo sold out. I asked my buddy Nick what was good, and he said this, and sure enough, as soon as I got it, it was just a real performer, because not only is it good looking and good in hand and got all the other elements, the blade is actually really thin behind the edge, despite what my wife thought in my recent video. I can get this to slice, you know, almost as well as this bad boy here. Right behind the edge, it's down to about 0.13 inches or whatever it is. Remove the zero if I'm wrong, but it's very, very thin behind the edge, like almost kitchen knife, just really well ground. A really great using knife, and overall it's probably my favorite of all these knives of the year. I mean, this is probably close. They're all just really, really good. So yeah, that's my top 5 knives of the year. This has been Fridays with Basil, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye now.